Alright, what's up guys? Sorry for how late it took for me to get this build video out, but gonna go ahead and finish it up today. So this is it. So this is my first Magplar build video. This build video is a light armor damage version of Magplar, which you don't really see too often anymore. We're not using any shields or anything really fancy, but this is the build that I've been playing on my live streams and in the video that you saw recently. If you watched my last video where I was landing like 16k meteors on some people and my Crescent sweeps were hitting people very hard, so the damage is really there, and it has the decent resistance as well. And let's go ahead and get to the stats right off the back. So these are the stats unbuffed. As you can see, I put 50 into Magicka and 14 into health. I felt like my health was a little low for being in a light armor setup. So on Citadel it's about 26k. I am a Breton for cost reduction and sustain manually, especially since my Magicka regen isn't all that really high. The spell damage right off the back is 2500 and the spell crit is 32.7. These are the resistances unbuffed. Yes, this seems really low, but I'm gonna show you why these resistances go really high. And we got about 3k spell resist because of all in pen and passives. And we have 11.4k spell penetration. So even though our spell damage right now isn't super high, we do have a lot of pen in this build. I'm using the Apprentice for more spell damage, and we are using Witch Mother's Potent Brew for some extra sustain from Magicka regen. And I'm going to show you why. If you feel comfortable enough with this regen, you can switch to Tri-Stat. I play this in Tri-Stat at times, but I generally stick with Witch Mothers. But I mean, these are the stats unbuffed. So let's go ahead and get the soft buff stats. So soft buff, we're looking at 3k spell damage, 42% spell critical, and if burning spell weave procs, it does go up a little bit more. Spell resist is 27k and physical resist is 21k. On the back bar, this does increase because yet again we're using Death's Wind, and this is for our block healing. 31k spell resist and 27k physical. When Bloodspawn procs, spell resist goes to 37k and this goes up to about 31, 32, 33k. I can't remember exactly. I do remember that it was pretty high. So if I try to get everything buffed like regular, see if we can get burning spell reader proc. So we go up to 4.4k spell damage in this setup, and our pen is actually right at 16 through 17k because of elemental drain. So you have pretty good damage. You have good spell crit, pretty high spell damage, and amazing penetration. Link. Alright, so real quick, if we do skip to, or not skip, if we do put on my other setup I like using. This is the setup I mainly run in groups, if the group is anywhere from like 2 to like 4, 5, 6 people. But this one does come with more spell damage. Sustain is a little worse. Let me see if I can get everything to proc. So as we just saw here, we go up to 5200 spell damage. 5200 spell damage with about 16k pen in this setup. Alright, so let's go ahead and go to the item sets. So I'm going to go over the base sets of everything that I'm using, and then I'm going to go over the monster sets, because there are a few monster sets you can use depending on what you feel like the build lacks. But I highly suggest Bloodspawn, only because you're in light armor and you are very squishy. But let's go ahead and get to the armor. So we're using 5 spinners. Y spinners, the 5-piece doesn't necessarily help our healing, but it does give us that extra penetration. So it is really nice. And the 2 to 4 piece is actually really good. We're getting quite a bit of max magicka, and we are getting a bit of spell damage. So we're using 5 pieces of this. So right now I believe we are using the necklace and 4 body pieces. Everything is in pen. And then the other set that we're using is Burning Spellweave. This set has a great 2 to 4 piece as well, but the 5 piece is really what motivated me to use this. When you deal damage with the flame damage ability, you have 15% chance to apply a burning status effect that essentially increases your spell damage by 519. This is like Ravager but for magicka, and it's just procced more directly. So this only procs off of your reflective light slash vampire's bane. But as a dot sticking, it does have a pretty good uptime. Single target might be a little lacking, but when you're open world, I'm gonna show you why. But yeah, so we got 5 spinners, and then we have 5 burning spellweave. I'm using a burning spellweave lightning staff because lightning staffs give 8% damage to AoE. If you don't have a lightning staff, you can always use a flame staff. I don't know if I have it on. Oh, I sure do. You can always use a infernal staff. The enchant that I have on this is obviously the weapon damage enchant, and then it is Nirnhone for the extra damage because we are trying to stack spell damage versus casually stacking max magicka. But for the traits on the necklaces, we're using 2 burning spellweave here actually, staff, and then 1 piece here. So this is 5 pieces, and it's only on the front bar. That way we directly proc it more. But we're using 2 protective. Like I said, we are in light armor, so we are a bit squishy. So this really did help a bit. And then for anything else that I lost, because I did give up quite a bit of magicka to put on protective. I put on Triune to make up some HP to give me a little bit more stam and a little bit of magicka. If not, you can always go infused and have a spell damage one if you want more spell damage. But I felt like this was a good threshold because I didn't want my max stamina to get any lower than this. If you put on Tri-Stat, let's see. This is what your stats will look like more. You have a lot more HP and your max stamina is insane. But this is only if you're really used to the build. And if you do go Tri-Stat, I do recommend taking off Kina. But now let's go to the monster set. Why Kina? Kina I think is a very underlooked set, and it's also very easy to proc. In this setup, you can have Burning Spellweave proc and then proc your Molag Kina, and this is insane. This set is really nasty when stacked with another damage set, as in that gives like a flat amount of spell damage or even weapon damage. But why Kina? It's very easy to proc. It's a controllable proc, but you do have to be careful when you're trying to proc it. So Kina procs off 2 consecutive light attacks, right? It reduces, or it increases the cost of your ability, so it does reduce your sustain. But let me just show you why I'm using this. You can go a light attack into LE Drain into another light attack, and that immediately procs your Kina. So like I said, you could go light attack, LE Drain, another light attack, bang, you already proc Kina, and look at your 4200 weapon damage because your weapon damage enchant can proc as well. So that with Burning Spellweave and continuous attack, just think of the potential of the stacking spell damage. So it's really nasty. You already have a crap ton of pen, and then you have 5k plus spell damage. So it is really nasty. You just really got to know when to burst with it, and you got to keep an eye on your ultimate because it does increase the cost of your ultimates as well. That's also why we're using a low cost ulti, so it doesn't affect this too much, but it does affect Meteor. And real quick, obviously the other set that you can use is Bloodspawn. And keep in mind that my monster sets are 1 heavy and 1 medium, and then 5 light on the body. So we get the light passives, and we get the Undaunted passives. Bloodspawn overall is going to be your better choice for this setup, especially if you're solo, duo, or trio. This makes you hella tanky for being a light armor. Like I said, your spell resist will go up to nearly double and your physical resist will go up to about 32k. And then at that you'll have about 4400 spell damage and about 17k pen as well. It's really nice. So this is the bar setup. There's a few things you can switch around, but this is what I'm using live, and this is what I use even in duels if I ever do duel. So this is your bread and butter for your sustain, and also quite a bit of damage. This is a single target ability, but really does help a lot. So this is Elemental Drain. You get this from the Destro skill line. This is your main debuff. You put this on your enemy, and then that's when you just keep going in with the rest of the abilities. This reduces their spell resistance by quite a bit, 5200, and then it also applies minor magicka steal, which lets you restore 300 magicka every 1 second when you're damaging them. So this essentially adds like 600 magicka regen. So before you guys roast me for having such low regen, LE Drain and 2 other abilities are really making up for that. On top of it, I am a Breton, so I do get cost reduction. Reduce the magicka cost of your abilities by 7%. So the next ability that we have here is Puncturing Sweeps. This is in the Adric Spear skill line. This ability is really nice, especially when it's not lagging. This is your spammable. Like I said, this is your bread and butter, and this also scales off of Thom as well. So this is pretty much just your spammable. While you're hitting quite a bit of few people, it actually heals you as well. And you do not need a target in order to cast this ability. So that means while your Night Blades are cloaking away, you can actually keep jabbing them or sweeping them out of stealth. The next ability here is Radiant Oppression. This was buffed a while back, and the channel is a lot smaller. This is an amazing ultimate. Right now it's a little bugged with this patch where if you use this ultimate and actually kills the enemy, you'll keep casting Radiant Destruction / Suppression on the dead body. So make sure you block right after it's done, because you will get stuck in this channel for the whole duration. Even if the first tick kills your opponent, you will keep radiancing their body. But yeah, this is just the Executioner. After you go through your rotation, you start spamming this, and around the same time, Purifying Light will explode and damage your opponent as well. So this is what finish up your target. But this is Purifying Light. For those of you that follow my Stamplar builds and understand Power of the Light, this is essentially the same thing, except when this blows up, it does leave a pool of sunlight, quote unquote, and it sticks on the enemy, and as long as you're near, you're healing every 2 seconds for 6 seconds. So it's a smaller heal, but it does add up over time. But this is your burst ability. This builds up as long as you're doing damage. So while this is exploding, while you have your reflective light and you're jabbing your opponent and they're already low HP, go ahead and start radiating when they're about 30%, 40% HP. This will blow up, and this will really, this combo right here will just destroy them. But this is your main burst ability. And then you have reflective light. So why reflective light over the other one? Vampire's Bane. The duration doesn't last as long, but it does hit multiple targets. While this is hitting and ticking on multiple people, this really does proc your Burning Spell Weave. So while you're just jabbing or sweeping, and you're minding your own business, when you know you want to go in and have your Burning Spell Weave proc, just hit Reflective Light. If you hit like more than 2 targets, you're almost more than guaranteed for your Burning Spell Weave to actually proc. So it's really controllable and is nice. And it's also a pretty decent dot. You get 13k flame damage, and the initial hit is 5300. And this is also very important because it does give Major Prophecy, which increases your spell critical rating by roughly 10%. Now here's your cheap costing ult. A lot of people were overlooking this for a while. When this first switched to a Magplar ult, I was actually very happy about this because we now have a cheap spammable for Magplar. This is hitting people in front of you for 60% extra damage, so that Crescent Sweep there is not really 8300. And for crits, it's going to hit very hard, and it only costs 72 ult. The radius is really short, so get up on your opponent when you're ready to cast this. But yeah, this is your ultimate, and it's very important to know when to use this, when you need a quick burst. But this ultimate does hit very hard, especially in the setup. You have all the penetration, you have a bunch of stacking spell damage. So before your Purifying Light goes off, you dot them up, Purifying Light, you're jabbing. Before the Purifying Light goes off, hit that Crescent Sweep and then go into the Radiant. That's what's going to destroy them. They're going to just take a lot of pressure. Alright, so on the back bar, we have a few different things we can use back here, but there's only one skill that I ever replace if I do. So here we have Degeneration. This is your major sorcery buff, and this allows your light and heavy attacks to heal you as well. Eclipse is really strong. Right now it's insane damage, and it's a lot of healing. I use this a lot. I try not to use it in duels because it can really make the fight kind of one-sided, or it can really be a crutch, I guess you could say. So I try not to use this. It's really cheesy in duels, I think. But yeah, Eclipse is very, very strong. But this essentially puts a bubble, and every time they try to use a direct damage attack, it heals you and deals damage. Or it did heal. Oh my god. I don't know why it wasn't morphed. Okay, I was like, it should heal. Yeah, and then it heals you for the same amount, pretty much. But it's really strong. While you're open world, you need some heal over time. Just throw Total Dark on like 4 different opponents and then just keep playing. You're going to be getting healed like crazy. But if you don't want Total Dark, you can always put on Toppling Charge if you feel like you're lacking mobility open world, because you kind of do. We're not a vampire in this setup, so we used to use Mistform here, so that would help a lot. But you can use your Meteor, which is a back barrel, and then go and Toppling Charge on your opponent. Right before the Meteor hits, it'll CC them, and then they'll get hit by your Meteor. If you don't want to use Total Dark nor Toppling Charge, you can always use Luminous Shards. So this is basically like it's an AoE damage. It doesn't tick for too hard, but it does let you target your opponent. So if you like tell people, hey, ult on my shards, they're going to move up, and like that's where they know to ult. So they all drop their Dawnbreakers there. So it is kind of a good ping system, and also allows players to have a synergy that restores their Magicka and stamina, whichever is higher. And then in addition, it also restores an additional about 2k Magicka or stamina, so whichever one is lower. So it does help with the group sustain and the group utility. But usually I have Toppling Charge here just for the roly-poly Night Blades that are everywhere. Alright, so the next ability that we have here is Channel Focus. This is your Major Resolve and Major Ward. This is what makes you essentially tankier, and while you're standing in it, it gives you another 50% bonus to your resistances that this ability gives you. So while you're standing in it, you're going to get an additional 2k spell and physical resist, really making you tanky, and that's really important while you are in light armor. And this also restores Magicka back to you every 2 seconds, which is another 480 Magicka regen. So even though on paper here we're looking at really low regen, we have Elemental Drain and we have the Rune, and then we also have this 5th ability, which I'm about to get to in a second. This next ability is very important. This is Extended Ritual. This actually does heal people for quite a bit, especially in group play. This ability also cleanses you of 5 dots, and it's honestly really strong. While you have a root on you, you could use this and cleanse the root. While you have lots of dots and debuffs, you use this ability and you just cleanse all of it away. It is an amazing ability, and that AoE heal that people don't realize. It takes for very little, but in long-term duration fights, it's really underlooked. So the last ability here, I don't know what happened with my... The last ability here is Honor the Dead. Honor the Dead is your Breath of Life, except it only heals you or your target, whichever is lower. So this ability, a lot of people didn't like for a while, but honestly I think it's great. I'm not a heal bot, but I do have the ability to throw off heals to people in my group. But when you heal anybody that's below 75% health. It restores 60% of the ability's cost. So you're getting regen back from this as well. I don't know what the actual number of this is, but you are getting magic regen from it back as well. So it's really nice. But this is your ability that you will block heal with. So you have your rune down and everything. Everything's looking good, and you're block healing. But you need to target people if you're trying to throw off heals. Last but not least, Ice Comet. If you're a vampire, you could just use Bat Swarm. But Ice Comet is a beautiful ult for group play, I think. Ice Comet does have this marker. So before it hits your opponent, there's like a small signal that lands, and it also gives your opponent time to see where it's gonna hit, which does kind of suck. Some people will just block automatically, but if it's kind of a bar group, you could drop your meteor and you can wait for your group to prepare. It gives your group time to prepare to go and drop ults as soon as the ice comet hits. So it takes about a second to actually fall and hit your group that you're trying to ult. And when you say that, you're like, okay, let's ult here, they'll group on your meteor. So they will look for the signal from the meteor and they will all drop their ult on that. So it's been really helpful open world. Now we're going to go to the CP. So we're going to start in the blue tree. Blue tree, we have 40 into Elfborn, 75 into Elemental Expert, and 38 into Spell Erosion. These are kind of self-explanatory if you look at them. And then we have 56 into Master at Arms. This is mainly for your Meteor and your Crescent Sweep because we do want a hard-hitting ulti. And then we have 61 to Thumb because we are basically all dot damage. And it just really increases your damage overall. Now the red tree, we have 40 into Ironclad and 51, a giant 51 into Resistant. And we have 64 and 64 into Hardy and a Elemental Defender. And we have 44 into Thick Skinned. Why Thick Skinned? Sometimes you don't have the magicka to keep purging and you really need to wait for a pot or something before you purge again. So this will at least reduce some of that incoming damage from the dots. Because let's be real, like who isn't using dots right now in open world? And we have 7 into Quick Recovery here. This is really iffy. I might adjust my CP to have a little bit more into this because it does stack with Blessed here, which I actually should have some CP into right now. I just didn't really think of it while I was open worlding in this build. But yeah, I'm going to try to spec some more into Blessed, and if I do, I'll update you guys in the description on what I changed my CP to. So onto the green tree, we have 52 into Warlord for the break free. 25 into Sprinter because we don't really have mobility and sometimes we do need to chase down targets. 56 into Arcanist, this is just for your magicka recovery. And we have 65 points in Tenacity. Why Tenacity? Your heavy attacks are your kind of ranged DPS with your Lightning Staff. They're kind of unavoidable unless people cloak them or CC you. But the lightning heavy attacks do restore quite a bit of magicka, so that on top of with your all the regen you're getting from your abilities, not essentially a magicka recovery, this does help a lot. And then here we have 20 into Tumbling. I don't really dodge roll too much, but there are cases where you really do need to. And Shadow Ward, we have a whole 52 points in the Shadow Ward because we are block healing. So that seems to be pretty much everything for the build. If you guys have any questions, just let me know in the comments below. A few other replacement sets. If you don't like spinners, you can always go and put on another damage set like War Maiden or even Julianos. Julianos is very underlooked and it's just really good. It also gives you a lot of crit. If you don't like the monster sets that I gave you guys for an option, you can always replace Kina or Bloodspawn with Valkyn Skoria, as you see I have before. And or even the last option, it was Engine Guardian. Engine Guardian I think is still pretty underlooked. It also gives you some kind of LOS open world. And then last but not least, Pirate Skele. I used Pirate Skele for a while. This gives you a bit of resistance, and on top of that, does give you major protection and a minor defile. The minor defile isn't too rough, but the major protection overall is amazing. It's really strong. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much everything for the build. If you guys have any questions, like I said, just let me know in the comments below. This is a DPS Magplar that also has some decent resistances and decent regen, but the damage is insane. It's really, really strong. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And sorry for how long it took for me to put this video out. But if you guys need any tips on anything, just let me know and I'll answer all the questions below in the comments. Thank you guys very much, and this was the Realm Breaker build.